So next week, sorry if we let everything drop away. Next week there will be a test at some point. Well, for you guys, it would be Thursday because you don't have school next Friday. And it would just be over what we're ready for. So don't freak out about like what is the unit test. And actually, I think unit is covered up by my little screen there. It's fraction decimal percent conversions will be what your mastery is over. So today's lesson is a lot of what will be on that test. So paying attention today and making sure you ask questions, that would be, a really good idea. So LearnStorm, we said we're going to check. Let's do that. Where do you guys think we are?
Probably like 20.
I wish it told us the last time we checked it, because I can't actually remember the last time we checked it, but let's go. So if you make it to 20, I owe you 2 pieces of candy, right? Or if you make it past 20, right? Through 20?
Wait, so the unit test is this Friday?
Next week. Thursday for you guys. We just had a test. I don't do tests like 2 weeks in a row. That would be silly. But we got to get it in before fall break, right? That's the thing, is we have fall break coming up in just 2 weeks. All right, at the end of class, I will dump some candy out over on the table over there because each of you get 2 pieces then from all of our LearnStorm progress. Unless we make it up to 25, and then I'll owe you 3 pieces actually. Drink water, by the way, especially since we're not really doing any... Oh, well, there we go. So I've got the new homework in Khan Academy now. So the way that we can push that LearnStorm forward in the... How many days do we still have? I forget. We have like right until fall break, pretty much. I think it ends during the week that we're out for fall break. Like it might end at Thanksgiving, I think. So we pretty much have this week and next week. So keep going. There are lots of video examples in Khan Academy, which will also help you in LearnStorm, because each of those counts as an assignment. So please actually watch those. They're great review before the quiz and the test. Like, I've had some people tell me, like, oh, I just hit play and just, like, let it play. Okay, that's, like, fine. But you're not getting the benefit out of it that I would hope that you would get. Oh, yeah, and I made homework due next week. Please don't make me regret this. I decided to give you guys a bit longer to spread things out, but I need homework in before we take the tests. So that's why homework's due Wednesday, and then our test would be on Thursday. All right, so if we are converting fractions, decimals, and percents, the first thing that we probably want to talk about is, what does percent even mean? So can anybody tell me what percent means? What do you got, Mir? Yeah, it is the amount out of 100. So please, on your notes, go ahead and write percent means for every 100. Percent means for every 100 or out of 100. There are a few different ways that we can say it. Obviously, your date is 11/10. I might write some of these notes new, but I like how I wrote them yesterday, and it kind of, I think, I don't want to just say it's a waste of paper, but I think it's also a lot of effort for me to write them 4 times. Actually, 6. I teach the same lesson 6 times. So, examples, right? A single digit percent, like 5%, 5 out of 100. A double digit percent, like 37 out of 100, or sorry, 37%, 37 out of 100. A triple digit percent, like when coaches say things that aren't math and they say, I want you to give it 150%. Well, that doesn't exist really, but that would be 150 out of 100. Victor, you need something, man? Can I help you? Do you need graph paper or pencil or anything? I'm just surprised we're still flipping through our binder, unless we're just like looking for where we left off. Which actually is a really good point. Guys, you don't have to start a fresh page every time. Like, you can squiggly line across your page. You can even straight line across your page. I don't care. You can even, like, dotted line across your page. You could just start the new section where you left off. What's up, man? Yeah, right here in the jar. Just come grab one. Sorry, so I don't have to leave my little penalty box back here. All right, so a problem that we saw in Khan Academy was 1.3 versus 5/4 versus 1 and 8/25. So if we put them into mixed number form, because this is mixed decimal form, right? A whole number and a decimal. This is improper when we start, and this is just a mixed number, right? 1 and 8/25. So I'm like, well, I could put them all into mixed numbers. But still, even when I get them in mixed numbers, can I compare 1 and 3/10 to 1 and 1/4 and 1 and 8/25? What's wrong with this? Go ahead. Yeah. Ooh, Miriam quicker on the draw. So I gotta put this in my to-do list to make cards for you guys. All right, go ahead and try that then. Make common denominators. Guys, who took my notebook? Because it can't be my fault, right? All right, I have to make our random class cards. Because then I just can randomly call on people instead of it being like, who can talk faster? So sometimes we're searching for least common denominator. We don't really care about least common denominator. We just want a common denominator. Now, 4 and 10 could meet up at like 20, but we got 25 to deal with. 10 and 25 could meet up at 50, but the 4 couldn't. So what would be a good denominator for us to use? 100. 100. Well, guys, we just talked about percent means for every 100. We're going to have 100s in the denominators of percents. So, yeah, let's get to 100. Now, if you don't remember the decimal place names, you might want to make this note on your paper of right here is the tenths. The next spot is the hundredths. The next spot is the thousandths. But when we convert to common denominators, it's what multiplication can we do on top and bottom. So to turn our tenths into 100ths, we multiply the top and bottom by 10. Please make sure you're writing this down. Even if you already did this problem or think you know it, it's good practice. So for 1 and 1/4, what are we going to multiply this fraction by on top and bottom? What does 4 need multiplied by to become 100? How does 4 get to 100? Think about money. 4 of what makes $1? 25, right? So remember, the 1 stays the same. The 1 we just carry over. It's the numerator and denominator that we're multiplying. Thank you, man. I never popped the top off that to see how many there are actually left.
Oh, it's all good.
I like to write it on both top and bottom. You don't necessarily have to, as long as you know that you're doing the same thing on top and bottom. And what about 1 and 8/25? What would we need to multiply by there? Yeah, 4, right? And apparently I forgot to write that on top as well. So now that we have the common denominators, we can compare just the numerators to each other. Right, so I'll slide this back so in case anyone was missing any of the rest of the notes. So now that we have the common denominators, we can just straight up compare the numerators to each other. Which is the biggest here out of 30, 25, and 32? The 32 is the biggest. Jocelyn, are you mad and throwing things? Jocelyn's like, 32's the biggest. And then the smallest would be 25, leaving 30 to be the middle. So we've got our biggest, our middle, and our smallest. Any questions from that entire first section of notes? This is also why I like just kind of unveiling, is now I can give you a moment to catch up. My hand wasn't in the way while I was teaching.
What? Wait. Oh, that's why we couldn't see it. Sorry, I'm going to show the notes again in just a second. I'm scooching this over. I forgot that yesterday, then I moved it to be unvisible.
Any questions? Are we good? Are we done writing, or do we need a little bit longer? Anyone need longer? All right, so the next problem we're going to look at, if you want to go ahead and write down these three numbers, we're going to compare 0.2, which 0.2 is not the right way to say that. 2/10, right? 2/10 is the appropriate way to say that. So this is what the problem looked like in Con. That's why I had that moved over. It's because my recording screen. Now, so this does not mean A is 2/10, B is 1/7, C is 3/9. That's why we're not going to look at this very long, but this is what it looks like in Con. You have to click on these and choose the right one. But so those are our three numbers, right? That's the problem that we get this from. We're just going to come over to here and just work on our graph paper. So we just compared numbers in mixed number form. Let's go ahead and compare numbers in decimal form, right? So let's go ahead and write on our paper, like, make everything decimal. So, like, make decimal form. Now, I'm about to blow your little bitty minds. No, not litty bitty. Your brain is probably almost fully formed. Only a few years left. So, anyone ever heard anything interesting about division by 7? Huh? Did you say it's me? It's mean. Division by 7 is mean? Like, it's bad? Like, it doesn't work good? It what? It doesn't work good. What about the decimal, do you know? Well, that would be 7 divided by 2. I'm talking about when we, like, 1 divided by 7, this division by 7. Check this out, guys. What is 7 times 2? 14, right? What's 14 times 2? 28. What's 28 times 2? 56. Check this out. 1/7. Actually, go ahead and write down all of these, like 1/7, 2/7, 3/7, 4/7, all the way to 6/7, please. Now, as Clark wanted to point out yesterday, yes, this stops happening at 7/7. You with me, Victor? Man, do I need to move your seat away from that wall so you'll quit leaning on it? One divided by 7, or 1/7, is 0.1428. 50. It's not 6, it's 7. But guys, this is cool. 7 times 2 is 14. That times 2 is 28. That times 2 would be 56, but no, whatever. We were close. 57. And I'm not making this up, or like, this isn't just like, oh, math teacher, whatever. 1 divided by 7 in our calculator. Now remember, the last number is a lie, because a calculator does what? Starts with an R. What's a calculator do? It rounds. So don't trust the last number, but check it. 14, 28, 57, 14. The next thing that would come there would be 28, but it rounded. Here's where this is going to blow your mind, because right now you're like, okay, just some numbers. Great. Okay, Mr. Hudson. You're real excited about nothing. If we think of these numbers like A, B, C, D, E, F, and we're going to keep them in the same order, but start in a different spot, what's the next biggest number since we already used 1? The 28, right? The 2. If we look at 1, 4, 2, 8, like we look at the individual numbers. So 2. Our next number is going to start with 0.2. Now, if it starts with 0.2, what number comes after the 2? The 8. And then the 57. And then the 14. And all of that repeats. What's the next biggest number above 2? Ooh, single digit. In the single digit. Not 8. 8's the biggest number.
7.
Not 7. We've used 1 and we've used 2. It's the 4, right? So the next one starts with 4. What number comes after the 4?
2.
The 2, then the 8, then the 5, then the 7, and then the 1. And all of that repeats. See if you can predict what the next 3 decimal values here are. All right, I am going to start calling random people just even using the seating chart. So Amelia, if I go higher than 4, what's the next biggest number in my list of numbers? Close. You guys keep wanting to use the 8. I'm not saying the biggest. I'm saying the next. So if we go up from 4, well, 2 smaller, 8 is really big. 5, right? So if we start the next one at 5, it becomes 57, really 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, 8. It stays in the same order. So who can tell me what 5/7 is going to be?
7.
Yeah, 0.7, then 1, 4, 2, 8, 5. What about 6/7?
I knew the 8.
It starts with the 8, right? Boom. Because another problem that you guys had in your homework was, I'm going to go back to that, don't worry, was this. Which of the following numbers are greater than or equal to 4/7? And a lot of people are like, well, what is 4/7? Now you have them written down somewhere, and this could be like a cheat sheet for you when you're working on homework and you're like, oh, I know I have some conversions written down in my notes. Or on the next mastery, because on the last test I didn't let you use your notes, I would probably let you use your notes on the next one. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You should keep track of these notes and this cool list of divisions. Because if I don't let you use a calculator, you're going to want to have some things written down. Or you're going to have to think about, is 3/7 more or less than half? Right? 4/7 we know is bigger than half. And actually, when we look at the question from Khan, 4/7 is bigger than option B. Right, guys? Check out option B here, 0.57. 4/7 is bigger than that because it's 0.571428. And then it repeats. So then we're comparing to 0.2. Okay, that's just a decimal. Great. But 3/9. Anyone tell me anything about 3/9 that we could do to make it an easier number to deal with? Divide by 3 on top and bottom. Make it 1/3. What's 1/3 as a decimal? Oh, come on, guys. What's 1/3 as a decimal? 0.3 repeating. That's worth memorizing. The fact that 1/3, I got some people not writing stuff down, and I don't know why, because I'm sitting here telling you this is going to be useful on the mastery. 1/3 is 0.3 repeating forever. But instead of writing out a bunch of 3's, we can just write 0.3 and put the bar over it. Right? So this is what we normally do, is just say 0.3 repeating. But also what that means is it is 33.3%. Right, so when somebody tells you you get 1/3 of something, that's 33.3 repeating percent. Two-thirds, instead of 0.3, 0.6 repeating. Guys, remember, I know what's in your notes and I know what you would have written down. So when you ask me, can I use a calculator on this test? And I say, no, just use your notes. I know what things you should have written down. I'm not saying you have to memorize these things, but I'm saying you got to start utilizing notes. Like, this is a skill that we're trying to promote in you. And 3/3, of course, is 1. So then we can compare, right? 0.14, 0.2, which I could put a 0 after. 0.3, or I can look at 0.33 if I want to. What's the biggest here out of 14, 20, and 33? The 33, right? So if I just look at the first two decimal places, I got 14, 20, and 33. So 33 is the biggest, 20 is the middle, 14 is the smallest. I got a bajillion. What color you want? If you want to give it back, put it in one of those plastic bins, because they get sprayed at the end of the night. Any questions on this page? Because we're going to move on. Alright, if we already did a mixed number problem, we just did a decimal problem, now if you would like to label it, we're going to do this problem by percent solving. So the problem in con is this. 79/40 minus 162.5%. It looks like this. Right, so 79/40, I'm going to try to get my focus back. I think it's because it needs something else to focus. There we go. So one route that we could take, and I'm actually going to say, I don't care if you write what I'm about to show you, but if you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that, you should write it down, is if we wanted to convert the percent into a fraction, we know percent means over 100. Now, some of you have been making mistakes when we try to convert percents involving decimals. 162.5% turns into 162.5 over 100. But we don't like when decimals are in fractions. This is what we call a complex fraction. So we would like to change 162.5 into 1,625 with the decimal out here. The way that we can actually do that, and we're allowed to do this, this is one of those cool math things that I love, grab the decimal and just move it. Do whatever you want with it. But whatever you do on top, you have to do on bottom. So if I move the decimal to the right one, down here, I gotta move the decimal to the right one, which causes us to add another 0, and now our decimal's right here, and my fraction is 1625, or 1,625, over 1,000. But that's not the route we're actually going to take. We could, and I will show you that route when we're done with this. But if we decide to take the percent method, 79/40, right? And I should show what I actually have on my screen. 79/40. If we want to turn this into a percent, what would be our first step to do to the fraction to work towards becoming a percent? Yeah? Make the denominator 100. So we're going to take 79/40 and say, okay, what do we multiply by to make 100? Now, guys, I already have it written down, but I want you to take a pause and watch what I do. If I was trying to figure this out and I had a calculator, I'd be sitting here all right, 40 times 2, 40 times 3, I don't know, 40 times 7, Sorry, that's 407. If I don't know what to multiply 40 by to get to 100, we can divide backwards. So I'm trying to make sure that you can see. So if I don't know what to multiply by, take the number you want to get to and divide it by the number you're starting at. That tells me 2.5 is our multiplier. So that's what we then write down and show, okay, we're multiplying by 2.5, and then we do that in the numerator. 79 times 2.5, boom, 197.5. Once we have this in percent form, it just becomes subtraction. I got some people writing that I got some people not writing that I feel might want to be. The 100% on each of them will kind of cancel out, like quote unquote. Some people like to say cancel. The 0.5% on each of them will kind of cancel out. So we're left with 97 minus 62. 90 minus 60. 37 minus 2, yep, 35. Now, if you want to see the fraction method of solving, I'm going to fold my paper real fast. Here's the fraction method of solving. If we went down to here, so we got the 1625 over 1,000, right, from that original percent. If we wanted to go the fraction route, we'd have to turn this denominator into 1,000, which we can. Just multiply by 25. When we do that, we get 1975. Notice how it's essentially the same thing. Minus 1625. And we get 350, but it's over 1,000. So we're going to actually reduce it by dividing by 10. And dividing by 10 will get rid of those zeros, making it 35 over 100. Any questions? You don't have to write this down. I just wanted you to show that you can solve it the other way. That's totally fine. You can solve it the other way. That is totally fine. Guys, I am trusting, well, I'm trusting and I'm checking Khan Academy. But I'm trusting that, like, on our not at school days, that you're helping yourself, right? So if you're stuck, I should at least be getting an email from you saying I'm stuck. It should probably also have, like, a Khan Academy screenshot. But at least if you reach out and tell me, then I know you're stuck. But we should be watching those videos that I've assigned. There's other videos I haven't assigned that you can watch as well. Like, I want to remind you, those at-home days are school days. Which, if you don't have your mastery done today, I need it turned in anyways. Like, by the end of today, and I think, like, I'll let the cat out of the bag. I think we're going to do a fire drill at some point today. And I think we're going to do a rapid evacuation at the end of the school day. So, or at least one drill, because the weather outside's really nice, and we have to do these drills every month. Right, guys, we have to do fire drills in, like, January and, like, February, and, like, you've done them your whole life. You just probably block it out of your brain. But I need your tests turned in today. Like, even if it's not done, I might give you a grade of, like, not finished, but I need to grade what you have done. So please make sure you get it in the bin. You guys are the very top of the bin. Any questions on either of these methods? We can solve it with percents. We can solve it with fractions. We could even solve it with decimals. By the way, if we wanted to, I should review this really quick. 162.5% becoming 1625 over 1,000. Right, we already had that written down other places. This is, because it's an improper fraction, as a decimal, it's 1.625. Just as a really quick random review, to turn a percent into a decimal, the, like, trick that people will teach you is grab the decimal and move it to the left 2. That pretty much does work. So that's the trick that people will teach you, and it works. So trick, not in a bad way, but that's the trick people will teach you. Now the next, these are just worth knowing. So the next problem we're going to look at is this, and it involves thirds and eighths, right? Thirds and eighths, and a lot of us sometimes get a little mixed up on like different denominators. So I wanted to just make sure that we write down a couple conversions that we should just know. 1/4 is 0.25, right? A lot of us have this memorized already. Please write it down, even if you have it memorized. 1/4 is 0.25. I guess it's worth writing down. 1/2 is how much? Yeah, 0.5. So if you have half of the pizza, you have 0.5. If you have a fourth of the pizza, you have 0.25. If you have an eighth of the pizza, that's half of a fourth. Well, 25 is kind of hard to break in half. So we could make it 250, and that would be 0.125. Sorry, I want to cover up the stuff I don't want you to see yet. Does what I have written there with those fraction to decimal, do you understand, or does anyone have questions on how I got from 250 to 125? I looked at an eighth of my pizza is half of a fourth. So if this amount is 0.25 or 0.250, then this amount has to equal 0.125. Questions? My wife keeps yelling at me to shave, but you guys can't tell. So yeah, you guys seem very asleep this morning, so I'm just trying to say some random things to wake us up maybe. We got like not even 10 minutes left, so stick with me. Or I think maybe a tiny bit over 10 minutes. So guys, this is a number in this problem that you can see on the board, right? We got -7/3, -2 5/8, and -2.9. When I look at 2 5/8, my brain goes, oh, 5/8. Well, that's 4 and another 1. Why do I break it up to 4/8 and another 1/8? Yeah, 4/8 is half. So 4/8 is 0.5. Or 0.500 if I want to add a couple zeros that don't matter. 1/8 is 0.125. And I can put it all together. And then we could compare. Thirds, we just talked about thirds back on the other sheet. So if we look at -7/3, well, this is improper, so what is it as a mixed number? How many 3's fit into 7? How many 3's fit into 7? 2. Thank you for those of you who are awake. With a remainder of 1. So that would actually be -2.3 repeating, right? Because 1/3 we said is 0.3 repeating. It's worth knowing, it's worth using. Now we're going to kind of have a shift in gears because we're just going to cover as much of this as we can get to today. We're going to start talking about percent, tax, commission. Guys, I got a fun story to tell you that I forgot to tell the other class. And this is, well, this is what happens with hybrid teaching. Different classes get different stuff. Would you believe me if I told you that I used to be a jewelry salesman? Yeah, the guy who doesn't even know where his wedding ring is right now. It's somewhere in my house, but I take it off when I do work, like projects, because I don't want to mess it up. Yeah, I used to sell jewelry. Not just any old jewelry. Fine jewelry. the gold, the silver, the diamonds. I'm not making this up. Like, I tell you when I'm lying to you, I worked at Macy's as a jewelry salesman. Now, it's not because jewelry excites me. Watches, kind of. I like watches because there's a lot of math involved in a watch. But what excited me was the commission. Commission is like tax, but it's money given directly to the salesperson. So think about this with me. If I made 9% commission, which I did, I made 9% commission, and a gentleman walks in and buys a bracelet, necklace, and earrings for his wife, totaling $2,000. I, as a person who's good at math, quickly go, boop, 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 boop. I'm going home with $180. Just like that. This is why I want you guys to care about math. Beyond when you're out with friends and you're trying to split up a bill or figure out how much you should tip your waiter, like, that's important stuff. But my job, like, why I became a teacher and not an accountant or some other career where I could, like, make more money. I don't know why I put career in quotations. I want to help people, right? Math is like a really powerful tool to help you in your life. I can go make more money elsewhere. I don't think I will at this point because I've been teaching for 9 years. I kind of like it. But I'm here to help you guys understand how this applies to your life and makes your life better, right? This is real story. And actually, people would spend more than $2,000. You guys know I'm like a pretty agreeable person. Like, when I start talking people up, like, you know, chatting with people, I'm like, oh, and when's the last time you bought yourself a watch? We're talking about commission, and when I used to work at Macy's, I would make bank there, dude. Seriously, this guy came in to buy his wife's stuff and then ended up buying himself a watch and a necklace also. Dude spent like $5,000. So if I made 9%, right? If we talk about 9% of $5,000, that's an extra $450 on my paycheck. Like I said, jewelry did not excite me. This did. Commission did. So, percent problems, right? We already said percent means what? Out of 100. We should like know that in our sleep. So tax is a thing, like a lot of like, it's just death and taxes, right? If you've never heard this, Victor, wake up. Death and taxes are the two things you can count on. Is this like joke of a phrase? You know, eventually we're all going to die, and taxes are just a fact of life. At least if you live in a society that has to pay for things, we tax so that, like, you know, the government has money to pay for things. Now, here's the thing a lot of kids don't know yet. Food isn't taxed because food is a necessity for life. You have to eat. So the government says, okay, your apple, that's $1, it's $1. But your Xbox that you don't need, we're gonna take some money on that, right? So when you buy an Xbox, you pay the government some money. When you buy an Apple, you don't. It's complicated. I don't know enough about the tax law to really talk about how clothing fits in. I know most clothing is taxed. There are weekends where they don't tax it, like the tax-free shopping weekends before going back to school. And I don't know how you can argue that clothes aren't directly a necessity, but I think different places have different tax laws. So I don't know enough to talk about it, and I'm being recorded, so I don't want to say like stuff that's totally not true. I don't want to say that anyways, recording or not recording, but yeah, I don't know enough. So if tax is 7.5%, which it is a lot of places around here, if tax is 7.5%, that means out of 100. What that means in dollar terms, okay, well, if I make 7.5 into money terms, it needs 2 decimal places, right? I wish we had a better way, and we probably do, but like, this is currency form, right? Our currency has 2 decimal places, so if we put it in currency form, that's $7.50 for every, or for each, $100. So that Xbox that you bought, when you go to buy a game for it, it's taxed. So if your game was $50, how do we go from 100 to 50? That's a half. How much tax is there on that game that you bought? Well, yeah, 3.75. If your video game is $50, that'd be 3.75 in tax. Now, I'm just going to show all of this so you can write down as much as you want, and this is where we're going to pick things back up on Thursday. To calculate tax or anything involving percent. It's not just tax. I should not have put tax. But we take the percent and we make it a rate. What does rate mean? Guys, it's nothing special. Rate means decimal. When somebody says, what's the rate? Now, let me tell you a pet peeve of mine. I watch cable, and I just shouldn't watch cable. But when I watch cable and there's commercials, and they say, the rate is 3.5%. That's not rate. That's the percent. The percent is the percent. The rate is the decimal form. So if our percent is 7.5%, we can put that over 100. Like we said on the last page, we can do the little decimal bumpty bump. Sorry, that was a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. And we bump both decimals over. So now we have 75 over 100. Guys, if I have you turn in your notes at the end of class, would you get a check? Like, think to yourself, if I have you turn in your notes. I'm not saying, like, if you couldn't write fast enough. I just mean there are some people that I think are choosing not to write things down. Now remember, this is recorded, and it's going to be on YouTube twice, so if you didn't understand any of it, you can go back and watch it. This 0.075, that would be our tax rate. Not 7.5%, because that's a percent. Guys, cable TV drives me crazy because people say things wrong so often. Like they don't speak mathematically correct. Yeah, but I feel like this is where I can make a difference because then if you guys filter up into the world and you're just smarter than people are right now, maybe you can make a difference. That's my hope, is if I get you guys to be smarter than everybody else, then you can fix the world. I mean, you know, take your intelligence and do what you will with it. All right, there are two ways that we can do this in our calculator. Now, the other trick here, like we just said, and this isn't really a trick, but I keep calling it a trick, and I don't know why. We can bump the decimal to make our percent into the decimal form. I lost the note card I was writing on. But the other thing we can do, remember, is 7.5%. If we grab this decimal and bump it left 2 places, it turns into 0.075 because we would have to add a 0 out front. That is what we can multiply by to find out our tax. So what we just said, the tax for the video game, here's the math showing it. Or if you forget, right? Let's say I forget and I use 7.5 and I multiply and I'm like, whoa, I'm not paying $375 in tax. And you're like, oh, I forgot to divide by 100 because percent, I got to divide by 100. Oh, I can do that now. Guys, this is why math is awesome. If you forget to do something over here, we can just do it over here. It's okay. So if you forget to divide your percent by 100, you can just do it later. Right? This is a valid way to solve it. And then the stuff we're going to start talking about on Thursday is if tax is 7.5%, then the actual percent that we have paid on an item is going to be 107.5, and is the decimal place, by the way. That's another thing that drives me crazy when I'm watching TV. If you say and, there better be a decimal place. Because, guys, if you heard somebody say 107.5%, like, would that sound wrong to you? I hope so. It's not 107, it's 107.5%.
What about like foods that definitely aren't necessity, like your venti ice lattes?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to look into tax law if you're interested in it. It is interesting. Like, some people are like, that's the most boring thing ever. But no, it is interesting, like, what places decide the tax and not. Here's another cool thing. Who's been to Polaris or Easton? Yeah, I bet almost all of us. Who realized